before we start, as I normally do, so I want to ask you a simple question about Australia. So, what is Australians' native animal? Like, what is this particular animal that when you talk about it, you talk about Australia? All right, I'll leave you to that. So, answer it. So, today we're talking about cost implication, how much it's going to cost you for you to be able to come to Australia. How much does it really cost to study in Australia? I'll talk about study today and also give some briefings about even skilled visa. All right, so we're going to be covering the tuition fee, living expenses, as well as visa fee. So because a lot of you guys have been asking this question every time, like how much is it going to cost for us to come to Australia? So listen to this. Australia has long been a top destination for everybody who wants to come to Australia. Australia offers world-class education. We know that, and we know that Australia is diversified, multicultural, and a good place to really study. Do you understand? So for me personally, I will tell you that if you're coming to Australia, don't just say that you're coming. It's an investment that pays for a lifetime. Yeah, I said that. Yes. So basically, planning is key. And in this video, I'm just going to give you a detailed analysis and overview of what's like how much you're going to be looking at depending on where you're coming from. And just know that coming to Australia via study is a significant investment. It's something that really needs a lot of planning. Do you understand? So some of you will ask me, okay, budget, what about scholarships and all of that? Yeah, most schools will give you like maybe normal scholarship of 25% scholarship because you're coming from a Commonwealth nation and all of that. But if you want a full-time full scholarship, most likely, I tell you the truth, you always find it when you're doing a research program or probably you're doing a PhD program. All right, let's start off. So for some tuition fees in Australia, let's start by talking about the tuition fee. So the tuition fee will be the most significant expense that you will definitely want to make. So let's start with undergraduate courses. For undergraduate courses, expect to pay between 20,000 Australian dollars and 45,000 Australian dollars per year. Now, for postgraduate, which is for those doing master's programs, master's by research, you have to pay at least from $22,000 to like $50,000 per year. Now, this is like this is the range. Now, for people doing PhD and doctoral programs, you're doing like 18,000 to like 42,000 per year. Now, there's what we call TEF. TEF is like a vocational program. Mostly those in Australia, they get to do it and all of that. It's called technical and further education. So those ones cost between 4,000, sometimes even 3,000 to like 22,000 per year. Now, what is the cost of visa, student visa in Australia? Now, the cost of the Australian student visa, which is subclass 500, is about because it was really changed recently and it's about 1,600 as of July 2024. So it's really doubled, right? So and then there are also additional expenses. So depending on your circumstances. Now, circumstances mean if you're single, if you have family of four, family of five, if you have children, if you are married, and also it also has to do with your health check, police certificate, biometrics, as well as many other things. So we can be looking at in between making all those certifications and all of that can take like 300 to 600 AUD. That is when you're talking about Australian dollars, when you're talking about doing your biometrics and all these health checks, right? Now, just don't get it twisted. You must do what we call an overseas international students, overseas students health cover. All right. That health insurance is really important in Australia. From most student visa, it's gonna cost like from almost 1,500 to like 3,500 annually. That is depending. For me, I think it depends on the whether you're single or you're single. It might be $700. It might be $1,000 per year. So if you're doing a 2 years course, you calculate it with your hand. Now, English proficiency is important. I've told you that Australia approves of about for five or for four, um, English tests, and this English test can IELTS, PTE, and all of that. They cost between 300 to 350 Australian dollars. All right, so just convert it based on your own country's currency. You get yes. So I believe you're looking at the screen and you can see the figures right now. We have PTE, we have OLT, we have IELTS academics, PTE academics. All these ones I'm calling are the ones that you need to take. So you don't start asking me which of the English tests should I take. Do you understand? So that is how it looks like. TOEFL is approved as well. Now, there's what we call miscellaneous fees. These are application fees. These fees range from about 50 to 150 Australian dollars. it depends on what you're going to be using. Maybe you're using the amenities in the school or student services, like all these minor little stuff, borrowing materials and all of that when you're studying, and even your book expenses. Those ones, I don't really take it as much as a big deal, because sometimes some of these colleges to make it really free, and they budget it into your school fee, so sometimes it doesn't really cost that much. Yes. So these things are really important that you need to be able to do for you to be able to settle in as a student. So there are other cost implications. We also have to consider your flight ticket. Your flight ticket is important. Your flight ticket can cost between 1,000 to like 4,000 Australian dollars. It depends on where you're coming from the country you're coming from. And remember, everything I'm saying here is in Australian dollars, so you have to convert it to your own currency. Now let's talk about accommodation, because these things are things you need to be able to show proof of. So most accommodation cost a lot. So you have to have at least lots of, maybe let's say between your first few, depending on where you're renting, furniture, making up a lot of things, you can be talking about at least, let's say 2,500 to like 5,000, dollars, Australian dollars, to be able to even get. I mean, the accommodation we're talking about here is like we're talking about yearly. So maybe you're paying 350 or 200, or for shared accommodations you're paying like 300 and all of that. So generally for singles, about 35,000 to 75,000 Australian dollars. And for families, we're looking at about 50,000 to $100 Australian dollars. Now, let me say this clearly. These figures I just mentioned are just like overview. Now, if you're single and you're coming here and you don't have a family, we can talk about that particular range I talked about. But if you're married and you have a family, you're coming with your wife. Now, adding your wife alone, because I want to talk about the other part of it, which is this is the cost implication. Now, we didn't consider proof of funds. Now, proof of funds is different from everything you're spending right now. So your proof of fund is like, let's say, since you're being asked to pay that particular amount, your proof of fund will be, at least from based on the recent July update, proof of fund is about $29,000. $29,000. That's proof of funds. All right. So for single person only. Now, if you're not single, which means everybody that adds to your visa becomes a dependent. So let's say if you have a wife, your wife becomes a dependent because you're the primary applicant. If you have a daughter, your daughter becomes to a second dependent, fourth dependent. So your dependents, each of them must have at least a balance of 7,500 to at least 9,000 Australian dollars. So which means yours is 29,000 Australian dollars, theirs is about 7,000 Australian dollars. All right. So each of them 7,000, or sometimes it can be 9,000 Australian dollars. Your agent will explain everything to you, but I'm just giving you ideas. Remember, these figures are just a range, but this range I'm talking about is a good range. It must fall between it, no matter who you are. Right? I did my research well. So now, if you have, let's say you have two dependents, your wife, and you have a single son or daughter, then you know that you're talking about, let's do 7,000 for instance. We're talking about 7,000 is 14,000 plus that 29 to 29,800. That's, calculated together how much it's going to give you. That's part of the proof of funds. Now, that's not just everything. Now, for that your daughter, you need to actually show like about, let's say, $1,000, showing that you are able to register her for a school the moment she comes here. Most schools are actually sometimes, free. We'll have free schools here. We'll have also private schools here, the one you choose for them to go to. Do you understand? So it just depends on your choice. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So if you add everything up, that is how it is being calculated for the proof of funds. Now, proof of funds, now the last part of the proof of fund is this. That the proof of fund, the last part of it is that you will now look at the fees that you've been told to pay. Maybe your school fees is like 52,000 annually. No, sorry, your total school fees is 52,000. Do you understand? Which is it for a 2 years program, right? Master's program. It is maybe 52,000. Now in that 52,000, the school might tell you to make a deposit of $14,000. So that simply means you make a deposit of $14,000. Now you have to divide that school fees into two. So that means that if it's $52,000, that simply tells you that it's about, let's say, basically if my mathematics is still working well, it's about 26,000. You're talking about $26,500 here for per year. So they tell you to pay 26 out of that 500,000 per year. Look at the screen, that's the calculation there. So it means that you're going to be able to now take that 26,500 per year, remove 14,000 we have deposited to the school. that they give you admission, giving you a certificate of enrollment, and then the remaining part of that money, which is 26,500 minus 14,000, whatever remains from that will be added to your proof of funds. So that becomes your standard proof of funds. So you calculate your proof of funds personally for your family, the one we calculated before, plus in addition, you're gonna be able to add it with this remaining part of this 26,500, which is, if you do 14 minus 20,500, whatever it gives to you will be added to that, and that will form your core proof of funds. If you're single, you just have to add 29,000, and then anything you get from 26,000 minus 14, and whatever is remaining, you add it. That's your proof of funds. So that's how it's been calculated. Also, if you have, probably if your parents, if your somebody is sponsoring you, the person can actually, if he has a landed property, you can just use it to consolidate and add it up there. But I always say, always use, as in, make sure that you have the cash in the bank account. You have to show like a 3 months bank statement, a 3 months bank statement, and don't come and just show volumes of money moving. If you're planning to move and you know you have, legally you have good money in accounts, instead of you moving those money, why don't you start, but since you know you're going to be moving, start moving the money gradually into an account that you know that you're going to use. But I always advise, there's no need of moving those money, because as long as it's having the same name, as long as it has the same name, you can submit three bank statements. As long as all of them, when they add them together, they would equal that particular amount that I'm talking about. It is acceptable. Yes, it is acceptable. Very, very acceptable. If you have a bank in a bank A, bank B, bank C, and instead of you carrying the money and making mistakes and be putting heaps of money into that and make it look like you're trying to, you can print all the bank statements, put it into one PDF file, submit it. It will be accepted. Trust me, it will be accepted. It has worked for so many people. So this is what it entails when it comes to cost implication for student visa. All right. Now, the next video I'm going to be making, I'll be talking about the cost implication for skilled visa. Now, skilled visa is way cheaper than student visa, right? But let me tell you the truth. Investing in an Australian education is worth it. It is worth it. The return on investment is massive. And by the way, there are many things that can help you manage it here. As a student here, you're qualified to work for at least 40 hours. I think it's either 40 hours or 48. Okay, 48 hours now. Yes, 48 hours in a fortnight. In a fortnight means in 2 weeks. So that is, during your school session, you can work for 48 hours. Do you understand? So you can work for 48 hours, and then when you're not in session, meaning if maybe, because some universities run trimesters, so let's say first semester is over and you have to maybe 3 months before you start under this, you can work full time anyhow you want. And trust me, many people got a lot with that. I'm telling you. So there are some things that I might not be privy to say on this page, but please, it's worth it. It's really, it does worth it. Now,